The Federal Reserve has raised interest rates again today by 0.25%, so 25 basis points. I want to update you on what happened today, what the Federal Reserve did, and what they say that they're going to do. So of course, this all ties in with inflation, unemployment, and the economy. The Federal Reserve released a policy statement right after their meeting. The statement says, inflation has eased somewhat but remains elevated. The committee seeks to achieve an inflation rate of 2% over the long run. The committee anticipates that ongoing increases in the target range will be appropriate in order to attain a stance of monetary policy that is sufficiently restrictive. In addition, the committee will continue reducing its holdings of Treasury securities and agency debt and MBS. So that was their official statement. This all just means that they're sticking with their goal of bringing inflation back down to 2%. The Fed, they're going to continue raising interest rates, and they will continue with quantitative tightening. Okay, so we have CPI inflation at 6.5%. So that's what the rate was in December. We're going to see the January inflation rate, so that's going to be released on February 14th, which is on Valentine's Day. So now, honestly, I'm concerned about this January inflation report because, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but gasoline prices have been going up all throughout January. Commodity prices have been going up as well. Food prices, they're continuing to go up, and the labor market, it still remains tight. So we'll get the inflation update on February 14th. I'm not saying that the rate of inflation is going to go up. However, I think that it's going to be more difficult for the rate of inflation to come down and by big jumps down. So especially in the 5% range. I believe that Jerome Powell has that same concern. In terms of the Federal Reserve continuing to raise interest rates, the Fed is expected to raise interest rates 2 more times. So the next time is going to be on March 22nd and then on May 3rd. They're expected to raise interest rates by 0.25% on each one of those dates, each one of those meetings. So that would get the Fed funds interest rates to 5% to 5.25%. The market is expecting the Fed to stop raising interest rates after that March 22nd meeting. So quantitative tightening, that's still in effect. If you don't know what QT is, so quantitative tightening, that's the opposite of money printing. So the Federal Reserve, they're letting their balance sheet shrink. They're unwinding their treasuries and their other debt instruments. So now at the press conference, Jay Powell, he gave his prepared remarks. Powell warned about the lag effect. So he talked about this pretty quickly. He said that the full effects of the interest rate increases that were done last year have not been fully felt by the economy yet. So they're working their way through the system. Powell says that it's encouraging to see inflation coming down, but that there's still more work to be done. Powell said that the housing market is softening, business investment is weakening. However, he pointed out that the labor market is still holding strong. Powell said that the job gains have remained robust and that wage growth is still at elevated levels. So Powell said that while recent signs are encouraging, that they're going to have to continue their tough stance on inflation with a restrictive monetary policy. That's because, Powell said it. He doesn't want inflation to become entrenched. Powell said that ongoing interest rate increases will be appropriate to get inflation back down to 2%. After Powell's prepared remarks, the session had opened up for Q&A. So I thought that there were a lot of good questions being asked that gave us information about the future decisions of the Federal Reserve. So someone asked about how financial conditions have been, they've been really loosening up in the past few days. Powell said that the Federal Reserve will take that into consideration, and that's why they're saying that ongoing interest rate increases will be appropriate. Another reporter asked about the unemployment situation. That's because the Federal Reserve, they've been saying this for a while. They've been saying that the unemployment rate, it needs to go up substantially. We're at 3.5%. They're saying that it needs to go to at least 4.5% to bring the labor market back into balance. So they're saying that because if businesses and employers are still fighting over employees, then the only way to attract them, the primary way to attract them is to pay people more money, pay employees more money, and you get wage inflation. Obviously, that's working against, the Federal Reserve's fight against inflation. So that's why they've been saying that unemployment needs to rise, and meaningfully. So the reporter asked if the slowdown in inflation has changed the Fed's opinion on unemployment. Their opinion that the unemployment rate needs to rise meaningfully. Powell said that yes, that would be the optimal case, that we get disinflation while maintaining a strong labor market. So now I want to clarify on the further interest rate increases. So Powell did say that there's more work to be done. So a reporter wanted confirmation that there would indeed be 2 more interest rate increases, that we would get the Fed funds rate to 5.25%. That's because that's what the Fed said back in December. Powell responded with, they're going to update the assessment at their next meeting. So they want to make data-dependent decisions. That's what Powell said. So their next meeting is on March 22nd. Therefore, the inflation reports that we're going to get for January and February, those are going to be very critical in their decision, which is going to be made on March 22nd. Now, another reporter asked, why not stop the interest rate increases here? Why do we have to keep on raising interest rates? Is that necessary? Powell answered by saying that inflation is still running hot. Powell said that goods inflation has come down. However, inflation on services has not been coming down. So Powell said that it's still an ongoing battle and therefore more interest rate increases are necessary. Now, somebody asked when the Fed will pivot. So they're basically asking when the Federal Reserve is going to cut interest rates. So Powell said that if the economy is not in pain in 2023, then the Fed will not pivot in 2023. So that basically means that if we don't get a recession, then they're not going to cut interest rates until 2024. If we do have a recession and it's not a mild one, then the Fed, yes, then they would be more inclined to cut interest rates in 2023. Additionally, Powell said that this type of environment, it's not like the other business cycles that we've seen in recent years. He said that inflation could possibly fall back down to 2% without having a severe economic downturn. Powell said that that scenario, it's not the most likely outcome, but there's still a chance of that happening. So basically, Powell's saying that he still has hope of a soft landing or a mild recession. The debt ceiling, so that was brought up. So I'm going to be making a video on the debt ceiling. I'm going to go deeper into that topic. But I'll just say that, so what Powell said, it was not surprising to me. Powell said that Congress must raise the debt ceiling. He said there's only one way forward. That is for Congress to raise the debt ceiling. Any deviations from that path would be highly risky. No one should assume that the Fed can protect the economy from that fallout. Now, let me tell you what I saw. So I saw Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve. They had a very upbeat tone. So Powell seems very comfortable that inflation has been falling from 9.1%, that was back in June, to 6.5% in December. I believe that the Fed went with 0.25%, so instead of 0.5%, because they do not want to over-tighten financial conditions. So yes, there is a lag effect. I definitely agree with Powell on that one. The interest rate increases that they've previously done, I believe that that's going to run its course, and we're really going to see that in Q1 and Q2 of this year. So Powell said that we have not seen the full effects of that because of the lag effect hit the economy. So again, I think he's right, and I think that we're going to really see the economy hurting in Q1 and Q2. So of course, certain sectors like real estate, they're more interest rate sensitive, and they're seeing the pain, more quickly compared to other industries. So I believe that we're going to see inflation getting stickier, especially when we're down in the 5% range. So we can go further in depth, on that topic in a separate video. So that's going to be very important because that'll be the mapping out of the timeline of the Fed pivot. So it appears that, yes, I do agree with the consensus that there's going to be 2 more interest rate increases in March and in May. It is expected with a very high probability that each one of those increases will be 0.25%. So I'm going to be making a separate video on the Federal Reserve and the Fed pivot, which is going to be very helpful, especially to stock market investors. So please subscribe. Please look out for that video. Thank you so much, and I wish you a very nice day. Please take care.